Uhlmann reporting for Katie Chats at the National Film Board in downtown Toronto with filmmaker Paul Cowan. How does it feel to have your film, The Wanted 18, at TIFF 2014?
It's wonderful. I mean, Toronto is not easy to get into anymore. I mean, I think this is my third film here, and it gets harder every time. So I'm always happy when you get in. And it's a good time in the sense to have a film about Palestine, because Palestine's in the news constantly. It's unfortunate for Palestine, but it's fortunate for us.
Absolutely. And what made you choose to tell some of this story from the cow's perspective, which is something I found really interesting and really brought the story to life?
That actually came from my co-director, a man by the name of Amer Shamali, who lives in Palestine, who first came across this story in a comic book when he was living in a refugee camp. I think he spent the first 18 years of his life in a Syrian refugee camp, and he read, and he liked to draw, and he read this story about the cows in Beit Saur, his former town, although he had never been there. That's where his parents came from before they were put into the refugee camp. And so he wanted to make an animated film about the cows, an animated short. And Ina Fitchman, the producer from Montreal, came along and said, no, you should make a documentary about that. And then she contacted me because I have a history in documentaries and Amer doesn't. And so that's how we all came together. Amer basically came at it from the animated end of things. I came at it from the documentaries side, and we fought for 5 years and made the film.
And what about this story of these essentially wanted cows that were being hidden and being moved around at the time just because people were making milk and cheese?
Well, at the time, you see, Israel had a monopoly over milk in Palestine, as with so many other things. The only way you could buy milk in Palestine was from the Tenuva dairy in Israel, and so the first Intifada started in 1987, and for the first time, Palestinians said, "Wait a second, we've been under occupation for the last 30 years. We're not going to take it anymore," and that means all sorts of things to Palestinians. But one of the things it meant was we want to produce our own milk. Simple enough. But they weren't allowed to have cows. And so a peacenik in Israel sold them these 18 cows, and they were brought to Beit Saur. And for a while, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, tolerated the cows. But then what happened was the cows became more and more important to the town. They became a symbol of resistance of the Palestinians and a symbol of self-determination. And the cows took on a meaning far beyond the milk that they were producing. I mean, nobody thought that 18 cows were going to make a huge dent in the milk requirements of Palestine, but they became a symbol of freedom for the Palestinians. And then the Israelis got really angry, and they didn't want the cows there anymore. But the Palestinians are wily characters, and they said, well, we're going to hide them. And so for 4 years, they kept the cows moving from one place to another, and hid them. And then the Israelis, I mean, basically after a long time looking for them, they just gave up. And by that time, peace had been declared in Palestine.
And it's so interesting to me that a lot of the people who were milking the cows weren't farmers, doctors, lawyers, various Palestinians who, I guess saw it as a sign of freedom and just wanted to help protect these cows.
Yeah, absolutely. There was this feeling of solidarity and everybody working with everybody else. And it was this magic time there where you had lawyers out sweeping the streets. I mean, there were doctors who would come and milk the cows, and everybody was participating, and there was this sense of we're all in it together, and that was because the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat, wasn't even in Palestine. He was in Tunis. He was not allowed to come to Palestine. But partly because there was no one leader there was just this commune. Essentially, the town became a big commune, and it worked. It worked.
And what was it like for you as a filmmaker shooting in Palestine? What were the people like while you were there?
I had a great time shooting in Palestine, and because the people there, first of all, it's their story. It's the story of Beit Sahur, and everybody was involved with that story, even 25 years ago. If they weren't involved in it directly because they're too young, their parents were, or their grandparents were. So everybody knew the cow story, and everybody wanted to help, and we could get crowds to come out if we needed a crowd scene. If we wanted to use someone's house, it was available. If we wanted to get old vehicles to be on the side of the road, because this took place in the late 80s and early 90s, they materialized. I mean, the people just couldn't do enough for us. So what they might have lacked in experience, they made up in just goodwill.
And where's the best place for us to find out more information on the Wanted 18 and on the Indiegogo campaign as well online?
There is a Wanted 18 website, and that's the best place to go for everything.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations on a terrific film, and have an amazing TIFF.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for Katie Chats at NFB in downtown Toronto.